Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second election forum this evening. My name is Steve Henson. I'm the managing editor at the Pueblo Chieftain newspaper, and the Chieftain is one of the sponsors of tonight's event, along with Pueblo Community College's Center for New Media and the Governance Task Force of the 2020 Commission. Tonight's forum is for the Colorado State House District 47, and we call it a forum rather than a debate. And if you heard earlier, I'm sorry that you have to hear all this again, but it's really not designed to be a win-lose type of a thing. It's supposed to be an opportunity for us to get to know the candidates, to hear their positions on various issues. And so that's why we call it that. And again, in that spirit, we'd ask that you we want you to support your candidate. That's great. But please let the other candidates speak without interruption, without any type of problems. So, as I said before, they do deserve our respect for being willing to run for office. That's a pretty strong commitment. Just to remind you quickly about the format, each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves to you. Then we'll start into a question and answer portion in which they'll have 2 minutes to answer, and we'll alternate who answers first. And then we will have a rebuttal of 1 minute for each candidate, and then they'll have 2 minutes at the end to wrap it up. And so we flipped a coin, and Clarice won first, and she decided to begin tonight's event first, and then Chuck will finish it. So, Clarice.
Thank you. I wanted to thank PCC as well as the Pueblo Chieftain for hosting this event this evening. It's always great to be able to get out in front of a new crowd and new faces and tell my story, let you know what my vision is and why I feel so passionately to run for this seat. Before I get started, however, as a former correctional officer and teacher at the Department of Corrections, my heart goes out to the families and their friends this evening. So please keep them in your prayers this evening. And it's a very unsung hero type of job, but it's also very important. They are working long hours during this lockdown to keep our community safe. So I just want to say thank you to all of those people there at the correctional facility. My name is Clarice Navarro-Ratzlaff, and I am the pro-business candidate for House District 47. I attended Los Animas High School. I was born and raised in Southeast Colorado, and I proceeded to get my bachelor's degree in business management. This is my first time for political office. However, I am a mother first, not a career politician. I have been a teacher for the Department of Corrections and also for Los Animas High School. I have had the opportunity to serve my community by working at the United States Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, where I proceeded to help many businesses, many communities, many schools and libraries with grants and startup capital, those types of very important issues that small communities face. I have also had the pleasure of serving the people in the 3rd Congressional District as a former employee. My experiences have provided me with the utmost knowledge, respect, and dignity to serve as in the state capitol. My campaign motto is simple: more business and less politics, and that's just what I intend to do at the state capitol. Thank you. Our district has 4 critical issues: jobs, the economy, water, and education. I recognize our small business owners as our true job creators, and I will continue to work and make sure that they can grow and prosper and continue to provide jobs to our community. Secondly, we have the economy. My initiative in economy is to lessen the mandates and lessen the burdens that have been placed on those business owners so they can grow. Water and education go hand in hand in my heart. I grew up in Los Animas. We had the worst water ever, but through legislation, we were able to get new water. Sorry, my time is up.
Okay. Chuck?
Okay. Thank you for attending this evening. And thank PCC and the Public Chieftain for hosting this event. I, too, being a former state employee and a sister agency to Department of Corrections. My job actually started out at the state hospital many, many years ago, and so we all worked under very tough environments out there. And really, when these sorts of things happen, they really do hit home for those of us, Clarice and I, who have worked in these state agencies that are so tough out there. And believe me, starting with the state hospital and working, I mean, we had San Carlos as a partner down there. Times are really tough, and I think, you know, when we look at staffing at the state hospital, some of these places, there are real issues. But anyway, my feelings do go out as well. Gail and I, actually, my family and I have been in this part of the country for about 120 years. My family are ranchers, coal miners, farmers from the San Luis Valley, clear up through Los Animas County, clear up the Arkansas Valley. I was actually the first generation that left the ranch. It just got too small to support that many families, so I was the first generation that took off. Gail and I got married after college and after spending 4 years in the Navy, and we picked Pueblo as our community. Now, Gail worked for United Airlines out of Denver. I ended up commuting to the CF&I mines down south. I actually worked in Washington, D.C. I commuted 14 years to Denver. So Gail and I have worked very hard to maintain our roots here in Pueblo. It was very important for us to raise our kids in this environment. And Gail and I actually, I calculated the other day, I think we probably pushing 1 million air miles, probably road and air miles, to have lived here in Pueblo. And that was very difficult, but it also says something about what we face down here, and that's this tough economy. One of the things I would like to mention is I've spent about 20 years of my life on the private sector and about 20 years of my working life in the public sector. And I mention that because I really think that having that level of experience is very important as we start to look at the issues we face here in Colorado. I think having, you know, my first job, I remember I got laid off. I really thought the American dream was working well. I had gone to college, got out of the Navy, gone to college, and one day I came home with a frozen turkey under my arm. That was my severance package at that point. So I know how tough it is to get laid off. That happened again with CF&I. As the former Director of Employment Affairs for the largest state department, we had to lay people off. And I know how absolutely tough those circumstances are. But the proposition I present to you today is that really what we do is we find ourselves not as Democrats and Republicans so much tonight, and unfortunately I see we've divided evenly. I think what we have to do is come together as a community. We have to come together as a region, and we are, believe it or not, up against Denver, and that will dominate what we do for our community. Thanks, I just ran out of time.
Okay, we'll begin the question and answer portion of the program, and Clarice, you'll handle the first one. Regardless of who wins, Pueblo is going to have 2 new state representatives this session. How will you overcome the challenges posed by that collective inexperience at the state level?
Well, with my experience on serving on Los Animas City Council, I look forward to this new adventure. Working together with both Democrats and Republicans is going to be something that comes easy to me. I'm a relationship builder, and most importantly, I'm here to work for Otero, Fremont, and Pueblo County.
Okay.
Well, actually, for the past 20 years of my career, I was at a high level of government and had to work with the legislature throughout this whole thing. So as I have to say, I'm not unfamiliar with the legislature. In fact, most often I found myself very frustrated by the legislative process, being on the backside of the legislature. But having said that, I'm actually, with the Department of Human Services, one of my jobs was as legislative liaison for all the administrative sides of that huge state department. I think we had 5,500 employees in that State Department. So my experience, actually, I really know what we're getting into, what we face up there, having spent 20 years dealing with the state legislature. So I really don't feel like a freshman looking at this position. I really do think I have a lot of experience already going in. The other part of this is the relationship part of this thing. I think that the fact that we've got Lieutenant Governor Joe Garcia, we've got to take advantage of that situation and use him to our full advantage. I think that Leroy and I have gotten to know each other over the past 8 months, and I really do believe we're going to be your two representatives up there, so we've started working together already to form relationships. We've formed relationships with leadership in Denver, so we've already really begun this process. I mean, after 8 months of campaigning out there, believe me, we've met the vast majority of representatives. We've heard from a lot of people out there. We've heard from a lot of lobbyists, and I really don't feel like a rookie going into this situation. I think my experience will serve me well. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, then Chuck, you'll handle the second question first. Public school education and higher education in Colorado are underfunded compared to most other states. How can that be corrected?
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, an interesting fact is Colorado is the 7th wealthiest state in our nation, yet we are funded in the 49th percent in terms of our support of public education. So we're really faced with kind of a tough situation there, and I think that what we really have to do is, with the budget situation we're in, there's certainly no opportunity to increase a significant amount of the funding to our educational process. So I think what we have to do is do a couple of things. First, I think we've got to be smarter in the way we do education. And there are a bunch of initiatives going on out there. I think actually one of the reasons that I decided to run for the state legislature is there's a lot of discussion around education at this point. And I think we're at this critical point in terms of our results and what we've experienced. We're really ready to step away from the status quo and do something different. You know, there have been some legislative initiatives that are looking at changing the way we do per pupil funding. I think that will make a significant difference for the local schools down here. The School Finance Act, you know, there have been there was a group of stakeholders made up of educators, business people, elected officials that looked at the School Finance Act, and their conclusion was that really it is totally inadequate and somewhat archaic. Also in the Lobato case, some of you know, one of the judges in the Lobato case really came up with the same thing. So I think one of the things we have to do as legislators, and I've made it very well known that I want to be on the education committee. I've made it known through every channel up there. But one of the things I think we have to do is get up there and fight for our fair share of school funding for Pueblo and for our region down here, because really we are really underfunded compared to places like Cherry Creek. And so I think that's important for us to be at the table when they do evaluate the act. Thank you.
Clarice?
For me, our education situation at this point is simple. We need to have accountability. I was a teacher for the Department of Corrections and also a teacher for Los Animas High School. I was given a budget and I needed to stick within that budget. I made that budget work and I reached those children. Today, we have got to give our teachers the ability to teach. No one else knows how to reach my children except that teacher in that classroom.
Well, I guess Clarice is insinuating we've got a lot of crummy teachers out there, and really, I can't agree with that. I think when you're 47th in the nation in funding for education, I think that's a place to start to look. I think some of the things that are happening out there in terms of smarter education,